Hello there.
General Kenobi.
Atheism.
This is where the fun begins.
Atheism is the belief that God does not exist.
25 seconds into the video and you're already factually incorrect. This is promising.
Atheist, right? A in front of theism does that.
Atheism is the lack of belief in gods in the same way that apolitical is the lack of pertinence to politics. It isn't anti-political, it's simply the lack of association. In the same way, atheism is the lack of belief in deities. It isn't a belief in itself. Atheism is a belief in the same way that not collecting stamps is a hobby or not eating food is a meal. This is a really simple concept. I don't understand why so many people can't grasp it. Atheism is not a belief, it's the lack of belief in deities.
Okay. Therefore, to believe this, you have to believe that there's more of a reason to believe that God doesn't exist than to believe that he does.
The lack of evidence is all the reason anyone needs to not believe something. I don't believe in mermaids because there isn't any evidence of their existence. I don't need any more reason than that.
Okay. Well, given the state of things and that there is something rather than nothing in the universe, what evidence could you possibly have that God doesn't exist?
We have no reason to believe that there's anything beyond this universe. The existence of our universe isn't evidence of anything beyond it. If we applied your logic that something requires something else to cause it to exist, then what logically follows would be an infinite string of creator who begat creator ad infinitum. If something couldn't exist without a creator, then Yahweh couldn't exist without a creator. Dark Matter 2525 has an excellent video on this. I would suggest everyone go check it out. Why assume a creator to explain our existence, but then assume that this creator simply has always existed? It's inconsistent logic. Whether you're a Christian or a Hindu or pagan or atheist, we all agree that at some point there was something which existed that did not have an origin. But the only thing that we absolutely know exists is this universe that we live in. Perhaps there was or is a dimension which predates ours, but we have no reason to assume this, or have any means of testing it or confirming this hypothesis, at least at this point in time. So it isn't relevant to the world we live in, and we would have no method to even attempt to understand what that dimension was or if it contained sentient beings. And as far as we know, sentience can only exist in biological organisms.
You can't give evidence for the non-existence of something. You know, you'd have to be everywhere in the universe at once, and then that whole thing, and you can't. Actually, more than that, because God is defined as outside of time, space, and matter. At least the classical theistic God is. So you can't provide evidence. You can't. That God doesn't exist.
Exactly, it's unfalsifiable. We can't prove that leprechauns don't exist, or that ghosts don't exist, or that a race of Wookiees doesn't exist. But if there's no evidence of them, then I have no reason to believe that they do. Anything asserted without evidence can be rejected without evidence. You never have to disprove anything if it itself has not been proven.
So, and you know, there's only two options. You could either be a theist or an atheist. You believe he does exist or he doesn't.
No, you could also be a deist. An atheist is someone who doesn't believe in gods. A theist is someone who believes in at least one god who intervenes with their creation. And a deist is someone who simply believes in a higher power that does not interfere with us or may not even be aware of us. And they don't necessarily believe in gods, although some do, but many simply believe in an abstract deistic concept or some great cosmic algorithm. So there are primarily those three options, but there are other more obscure ones, like perhaps we're in a dream or a computer program or something else of that nature. Although perhaps these could still be associated with either deism or theism, I don't know.
So that, you know, either one, two options, means there's only 50% chance either one is true, disregarding any evidence. Only 50% chance.
No, there aren't two options, but for the sake of simplicity in this context, let's assume that either gods exist or no higher power does, with no alternative means of causation. That still doesn't inherently give either side equal credibility. For example, either Wendigos exist or they don't. Using your reasoning, we would logically conclude that Wendigos have a 50% chance of existing, the European bishopfish has a 50% chance of existing, the Googleana has a 50% chance of existing, and Buttermilk Bobby has a 50% chance of existing. So how accurate do you feel that this deductive reasoning really is?
So, to be an atheist, you have zero evidence, and you're relying on 50% chance. So just think about that for a second. You are totally making your foundation on what you're sure of 50%.
Atheism isn't a position that requires evidence in the same way that not believing in astrology doesn't require any evidence either, or not believing in ghosts. I don't have to give evidence that ghosts don't exist. I'm not making a claim. I'm simply waiting on anyone making an outlandish claim to provide evidence for their beliefs. Certain religious or superstitious claims can be tested and refuted, however, such as prayer or faith healing or speaking in tongues and prophecy. All of these can and have been proven to be bogus, but it still isn't necessary. I don't have to produce evidence against every preposterous claim that gets proposed. It's the person making the claim who has to produce the evidence, and if they don't, then it's only logical to reject their proposition.
Just think about that. If we all lived like that, life would be ridiculously terrible. It would be.
Life would be ridiculously terrible if we all used your logic and believed everything that can't be proven wrong. If we gave every unfalsifiable claim a 50% chance of being credible, then the world would be chaotic, society would not be functional, and science would never advance. If we didn't reject baseless assertions, then we would believe every superstitious hocus pocus out there. If we didn't require people to give evidence for their claims and just chose to believe them, assuming that they have a 50% chance of being true, then we would simultaneously believe every religion out there. Either Islam is true or it isn't. Either Hinduism is true or it isn't. Either Satanism is true or it isn't. Either Zoroastrianism is true or it isn't. According to the PondBros, they're all plausibly true. This is childish and absurd.
But all there has to be is the slightest bit of evidence that God does exist.
That would help a little bit. Yeah.
Which, since there is a bunch of stuff here, it does make sense how God could have made that.
It would make just as much sense that this was all a dream in someone's head, or that we're all in a simulation, or that everything popped into existence last Thursday. It's all technically possible, but it's all unfalsifiable, and equally illogical to believe any of it.
Especially in light of the, couple arguments for creationism, like the cosmological, teleological, and moral arguments.
The cosmological argument is the supposition that there must have been a time when no physical things existed, but since physical things exist now, there must have been something non-physical to bring them into existence, in other words, a causation. The cosmological argument is at best an argument for a non-physical dimension. It's not even an argument for a god or gods, and even if we grant that it must have been some sort of gods who were the causation for our physical realm, it is at best an argument for deism, not theism, and certainly not specifically for Christianity. This argument is equally valid for arguing that we're in a simulation or that we're in a dream, as well as equally valid for every religion that exists. So it serves very little purpose for anyone. This argument doesn't get anywhere though, and it isn't logically coherent. It wants to assert that our universe was created, but that the creator was not. So the creators must have all been created by something, or if you want to assert that one of them could exist without a creator, then why could our universe not? And let's say there was a creator. How would you know that it wasn't created by something? There's no consistency to the cosmological argument, it's logically fallacious. There are a few variations to the teleological argument, but essentially it's the supposition that everything is complex and fine-tuned and therefore must have been designed by someone. Again, this argument serves just as effectively for every religion, and is only an argument for deism and not theism, so it doesn't serve as an effective argument for anyone. One of the many problems with this argument is it ignores the possibility and the fact that things can and are produced naturally without any sentient designer. It also ignores the fact that the universe is not fine-tuned, and neither is Earth. In 4 billion years, the Andromeda Galaxy will collide with the Milky Way. Everything in the universe is spinning and merging and dying and birthing, all due to natural causations. Nothing has been placed in a fixed point. It's all being pulled or consumed or thrown by enormous galactic bodies and forces of the physical universe. Nothing is resting in a fixed position, not even Earth. In 5 billion years, the sun will expand into a red giant and consume the planet we live on. Even life on Earth isn't perfect. Over 99% of all species on this planet are extinct, and many are still going extinct if we don't do something about it. And the species that do exist aren't perfect. Look at humans, we have birth defects and fragile bodies, our hearing goes out, our vision dims and fades away, as does everything else. We're lucky to live 60 years, which is a ridiculously insignificant blink of time in comparison to other life forms on this planet, and exponentially less significant from a cosmic time frame. Nothing is fine-tuned, and even if it were, that still wouldn't be an argument for gods or a god, any more than anything else. It's simply an argument from ignorance, just like the cosmological argument. The lack of evidence is not evidence of something. Not knowing the answer doesn't mean you get to make up one. And that's all that the cosmological and teleological arguments are. And morality is not evidence of a creator. We're social creatures, and ethics help everyone to have friends and live in a functional society. It benefits all of us. I have an entire video on morality, so go check it out. I don't want to repeat myself.
Since things like that exist, even if you thought they were bad arguments, it's still better than one. It's better than nothing.
A bad argument is not better than nothing. This is revealing. It shows that you have nothing to back up your position. Admitting that these arguments are bad is very telling.
Even if it's bad, it's better than nothing. So, at best, just looking at the evidence, even if it's bad, and looking at the probability, the theist has a higher probability of being right than the atheist. Thanks for watching.
So if I give a bad argument for the existence of Jingu, I have a higher chance of being right than A Jinguns, just because they can't prove that she doesn't exist. And based on your previous logic, Jingu already has a 50% chance of existing. So does she exist? Are these sufficient arguments or not? Your video is arguing that atheism is illogical, but yet it's permeated with logical fallacies, uneducated and ignorant statements, as well as an unforgivable lack of reasoning. You either don't understand the definition of atheism, or you intentionally misrepresent and strawman the atheistic position in order to more easily argue against it and spread misinformation to all of your viewers. You argue that something being unfalsifiable grants it more credibility, when in reality it's very much the opposite. You literally argue that because something is either true or not true, it has a 50% chance either way. This is probably the most absurd and stupid argument that I have ever heard. And if this were a valid argument for Yahweh, it's also a valid argument for literally every other fictional character that has ever been imagined. Your logic is beyond broken. Every argument you even attempt to make for theism is an argument from ignorance. It's essentially, we don't know, therefore God. Not having evidence for something doesn't give you the right to make up an answer. The lack of evidence is simply the lack of evidence. It isn't evidence of something else. And then you actually state that having a bad argument is better than not having an argument. This is really telling. If your religion were true, you wouldn't have to make these sorts of statements. And if there were evidence of your God, you wouldn't need bad evidence. I've never seen any good Christian apologetics, but this is possibly the worst that I've ever seen. But if any of you viewers know of any better Christian apologetics, please send it to me because I would love to check it out. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you want to be notified when I upload, click that bell button as well. And remember, you don't have to cut your foreskin off or be dunked into water. All you have to do is click a button and you'll be part of the community. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.